I'm excited to share with you my 3 go-to patterns for quick, easy beanies. This is a great time of year. I'm filming this kind of towards the end of summer, and we're going to be gearing up for fall. And these beanies are great for yourself. They're great for gifts. There's not a lot of time investment. There's not a lot of yarn investment, and they're all free patterns. So let's go ahead and jump right on into it. The first beanie is the one I make all the time, and I actually just put out an instructional video on this beanie. It is super quick, it's super easy. It really takes just a couple hours to do this, and you can make it out of absolutely any yarn. I make most of them out of a worsted weight yarn and a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. It's a slouchy beanie. It is this same one I am wearing right here, but you can really make this out of any yarn. I've made it out of doubling yarns together. I've made it out of multiple different weights. I've made it out of 2 strands held together, and I've made really big and slouchy, and I've kept it kind of nice and tight. So if you don't want it to be slouchy, you can roll it up into a brim as well. So I will have all of these linked. If there's a video or if there is also a free pattern, I will link that. For this particular beanie, it is so easy. I do not have a written pattern. I know someone down in the comments had asked me, like, is this what you did? And I was like, yes. So if you do want to have it more like written out, go down into the comments and you can see where we had that interaction. So thank you for putting that in there. All you need to know to do to make this hat is half double crochets, single crochets, and how to crochet in the back loop. It could not be simpler. Like I said, just a couple hours and you will have this beanie. The next beanie you have seen over and over on this channel as well. I have made so many of these, and I really love this pattern. This is one I have been making probably about the longest. This beanie is by Little John's Yarn, and I feel like I get questions all the time when I wear this hat. The funny thing is I have a teal one, and I like the hat. It's lightweight, so I wear the teal one a lot. And multiple times when I have been in Joann, or the one time I was in Michael's, like someone stopped me and was like, oh, did you make that? Can you help me find something? Which is purely coincidence, but I don't know, maybe it is this hat. But this is from Alicia at Little John's Yarn, and I really love this. Now, her video on this hat and her blog post, which I'll have linked below, are both older, and on the thumbnail, it's like a pink and a cream, so it maybe doesn't look as on trend as a video you might see currently, but don't let that hold you back from watching it or making it. I do all mine solid color. I don't do a separate contrasting brim at all. I just keep it nice and solid. And with this, I always do a magic ring or a magic circle, but you could do the technique where, you chain 4 or 5 and then start crocheting into that. That is just fine. Otherwise, you're just doing a granny stitch. So all you need to know how to do is double crochets and chains for the bulk of the hat. And I have had people ask me, because you start out by making your square, and then on row 5, okay, right here is where it happens, where you've got all the way up 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've got the 2 in the corner separated by your chain 1 space, and on row 5 is where it changes and starts taking that hat form instead of the granny square. So at that point, you are just doing 1 cluster in between the 2 corner clusters, and you do that all the way down to the brim, and at which point it calls for a row of single crochets, which is super easy to do. And then her pattern does call for 3 rows down here on the brim, but I usually just do 2. I find that is sufficient for me and my forehead length, I guess you would say. Down here you do the single crochet, double crochet, and then front post double crochet. So that one is a little bit trickier if you're not familiar with that stitch. Once you get the hang of it, it is super easy. And again, depending on your head size and your forehead size, you might actually want to do her additional row on there of front post double crochets. But this hat is actually, I've been making it so long, this hat is actually how I learned how to do those front post double crochets. So let me try this on for you so you can see. I will warn you, when I pull this off, I am going to have some hat hair. But yeah, so I really just love this. I think it has like much more of a boho type look to it. It's got a little bit of bulk here, but because of the stitches, you know, there's plenty of airflow. Like, you're not going to be sweating terribly in this, especially if you were to make this in like a cotton or something like that. I think it would also go great. Hers does go for a 4-weight, a worsted weight yarn, which I do recommend. I have tried doing it differently, and I had used some yarn that claimed it was a 4-weight, but it really was more of a 3, and I just didn't care for how the hat turned out as well. I have found with this particular pattern, I like a little bit stiffer yarn. I feel like it gives it better shape to the slouch and gives it a little more roundness and bulk, where the ones that I've tried with a finer yarn or like a floppier yarn, I felt like it didn't hold the shape as much, and like it didn't, I think that's the best way to say it, it just didn't hold the shape of like the rounded beanie as well, and it just looked a little too floppy. I'm sorry, I do not have better adjectives at the moment than that. But definitely use a 4-weight or a 4-weight that even, you know, tends to lean a little bit on the thicker as opposed to the thinner. I cannot remember off the top of my head right at this moment if it's a 5 or a 5.5 hook. I want to say it's a 5.5, but it will be in both the video and her blog post that I'll have linked. But yeah, use the recommended size hook. Don't vary from there. I do not find that useful, and I really find getting the best results from following her instructions. Again, except for I do shorten the brim by 1 row. Let's talk about this last hat, and I feel like you haven't seen me wear this on the channel for quite a long time, and I am so glad I broke this out, because this is one that I kind of forgot how much I love, and it is a lacy beanie, and it is by Olga Poltava, I believe is how you say her name, and I will link her video to this. And I really, really love this. I have some that I made, and they were just like colors that I don't find myself gravitating to as much anymore, like a lot of brighter like fuchsia and purple and blue, which I still like those, but I've just definitely kind of gone a little more earth tony. But I also made a ton of hats for my cousin when I was working with her alpaca yarn, and I will link that video if you'd like to see it, so you can see some examples of how I made this. And I had 2 strands put together. The video is quite old, so the editing is probably, like my speech and the editing is probably going to be pretty slow on it. But yeah, if you do want to see some other hats, I will have that linked. Now, the big thing about this hat is that she does hers in a chunky yarn, and I don't find that necessary. So I just used a worsted weight, and when I was doing the alpaca ones, the alpaca was definitely, I mean, it was very fine weight, and I paired it with other yarns. I did it with some cotton and some silk, and that was definitely a very thin and more of a 3-weight. So really, again, I feel like comparable to this worsted weight. So don't feel as though you have to go out and get the yarn that she is using in this. And I want to say it is soft Bernat Softy Chunky is what she uses, which when I have used that in the past, I find that it's definitely like thinner and squishier than the label says. So that might have something to do with it as well. But I do use the hook size that she says, which is a 6.5. So bigger than you would use normally for worsted weight yarn. But I absolutely love this. I love how lightweight it is, and I love the lacy pattern. Let me go ahead and throw this on for you. I think this hat is such a great one for like late summer, early fall, when you want to have that hat, or you want to have the look of a hat, but it's still maybe a little bit on the warm side because it has so much lacy detail. And I think this also just makes it real special and just a little bit something different than like a basic beanie. Now this one for sure is probably just more feminine looking, and I would say probably more feminine looking on this one, but I did see Alicia do a man's one, I believe, but it was definitely more masculine colors. It just depends if the man you're looking at making it for likes that type of thing, where this one can definitely be for everyone. Sorry, this one. I wanted to do them all in the same color so that the color wouldn't influence you. But yeah, this hat, they all work up super quick. I would say like this one takes the most time, then this one, and then this one takes the least amount of time. And because again, there is so much laciness here, it goes super quick. I mean, it does take a minute just to get the little lacy pattern in there, but there's nothing in there that again a newbie crocheter couldn't do. And if you're an experienced crocheter, you'll definitely whip through it, because again, it's just chaining some and some double crochets and some single crochets and some chains. So the big thing I noticed with this particular pattern in all of them that I have made is that I had to add an extra row down here on the bottom. And that's just more for my comfort, but I do like it to come down a little bit. And I don't like mine covering my eyebrows. I do like it to be up here a little bit, but it was just a little too much up there before I added that extra row here down at the bottom. So that's the one alteration I did make to her pattern, is adding the extra row. Maybe that is because I wasn't using as big of a yarn, but I really think it has more just to do with head size. And I will caution you with this one, I have found this where I've accidentally added an extra stitch at my starting point a few times making this hat and accidentally made it a little bit too wide here. So something to be mindful of when closing it up. For some reason, this one just feels easier to mess up in that way. So this is going to be a quick video because we're talking about quick beanies. But this one right here, probably you can get done in an hour or less, I would say. Thoroughly recommend all of these. I will have all of the links down below, and if you are interested in this yarn, I'll have that linked as well. It is Toffee from Big Twist Value, and I absolutely love this. Like, it's a warm medium brown color, so it is nice, basic, especially if you're just wanting something to whip up some hats and not spend a ton of money on. I was able to get 2 beanies out of 1. I got these 2, and then I had a little bit of extra, but I knew it wouldn't be enough to finish this one. So I just opened up a new skein of it for this one, and I've got like half of that skein left. So these are all super affordable beanies as well. I do have a few beanie tips and tricks to getting like a bunch done at once, where I talked about it in a video, and it was for the holiday season, but I think it applies anytime, especially if you are wanting to really like kick it into gear and make yourself some new garments for the season. I will go ahead and link that up here if you'd like to watch that. But I want to thank you so much for talking yarn with me again. Bye.